Let's talk about the R word. No, I don't mean Remillard. I'm talking about recession. Are we in one? First, I want to remind you, you may not have realized it, but you've already lived through at least one recession. We were in recession back in the first part of 2020. It was just a small one, but it was there. And for all of us older TikTokers, we've been through a few more. So why am I talking about recession today? The second quarter GDP report was released this morning. GDP is short for gross domestic product. That is the measure of the market value of all the final goods and services produced in a specific time frame by a country. Today's report shows, yes, the United States GDP decreased at an annual rate of 0.9% in the second quarter. In the first quarter of 2022, the GDP also decreased by 1.6%. Now, since 1948, every time you've had 2 quarters straight of negative GDP, it has coincided with a recession. But as I have been telling you since April, GDP is only one indicator that goes into determining whether we are or are not in a recession. In this country, recessions are a natural but painful part of our economic cycle. There's no official definition, but generally a recession is the contraction of the economy that may include shrinking of gross domestic product, you probably know that as GDP, shrinking consumption, basically people pulling back on their spending habits, higher unemployment, and lower personal income. It's worth noting GDP does get revised several times during a quarter, and it is certainly possible when these numbers get revised with more data, this Q2 number could flip positive. Or not, we'll just have to wait and see what happens. But as I told you 3 months ago and several times since, an official recession needs to have a mix of several things. Right now, it is missing one of the big pieces in the mix, and that piece is a significant slowdown in the jobs market. Right now, unemployment is at a near record low of 3.6%. Millions and millions of Americans have jobs. The labor market is adding hundreds of thousands of jobs a month. Usually during recessions, it's the complete opposite. People are losing their jobs left and right. Just look at the numbers. During the Great Recession of 2007 and 2008, we had an unemployment rate peak at 9.5%. During the 1990s recession, it peaked at 6.8%. And in the 1980s recession, unemployment peaked at 10.8%. And we could just keep going back and back and back. The numbers are always the same. And that history led to the Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell saying this when he was asked yesterday whether the central bank believes we're in a recession.
So this is a very strong labor market, and it's just not consistent with 2.7 million people hired in the first half of the year. It doesn't make sense that the economy would be in recession with this kind of thing happening. So I don't think the U.S. economy is in recession right now.
Of course, that can always change, but here's the fact. Regardless of the official definition of recession or what the Fed chair says, lots of you feel like we're already in a recession. In fact, there are numbers to back that feeling up. I talked about them in this video on Tuesday when I talked about consumer confidence. So if you feel that way, then feel that way and adjust your budgets accordingly. Recessions mostly consist of behaviors as people and business react to what they perceive as the current or future economic condition. The truth is, today, this economic slowdown is exactly what the Federal Reserve wants to happen. They want borrowing to be more expensive, so you pull back on your spending, and businesses do the same, all in an effort to get this incredibly high inflation rate of 9.1% down to a more reasonable 2%. So prices can stabilize and things become more affordable again. That's why they keep increasing interest rates. The tricky part for the Fed is not to increase interest rates so much that it tanks businesses and causes them to pull back so much that they start laying off or firing people on a large scale.